Now, the story leading everywhere in the country is that ANC Secretary-General Ace Magashule has handed himself over to the Hawks ahead of his appearance in the Bloemfontein Magistrate's Court in Free State this morning for the first time since former President Thabo Mbeki's administration, where then Deputy President Jacob Zuma was charged with corruption. A member of the ANC's top six was on Tuesday charged with corruption and failure to exercise oversight. Now, ANC Secretary-General Magashule will be in the dock in the Bloemfontein Magistrate's Court to face fraud and corruption charges after the Hawks issued an arrest warrant on Tuesday. Now, the arrest warrant stemmed from his alleged failure to conduct oversight and report corrupt dealings in 2014 when the province, during his time as Premier, issued a 255 million rand tender to audit all RDP houses with deadly asbestos roofing. The tender was later marred by allegations that it illegally benefited businessman Edwin Sodi and Tabane Zulu, who is former Human Settlements Director General of the province. Both are currently out on bail for the same case. Now, as I said, ANC Secretary-General is expected to appear at the Bloem Magistrate's Court in charges relating to that Free State's asbestos audit contract, which happened while he was Premier. Magashule told the ANC top six that the charges relate to a lack of oversight while he served as Premier. Magashule also said he is not worried about facing the law. The party's top six have pledged support and say it hopes Magashule will be treated fairly. Earlier, our sister channel, SABC2 and Morning Live spoke to political analyst Ralph Machaga.
This is a clear case of a party that has been torn apart by corruption to a point where it can no longer help itself. I mean, listening to a reporter there are two versions of the ANC that are going to court. And at the center of this is that the other are saying that you are not a legitimate version. I mean, the reality is that at the end of the day, the people who are preoccupying themselves with all this, whether you are in a good faction or you are in a bad faction, perceived or real, the reality is that today the ANC is not attending to how to deal with 30% unemployment. So this is an opportunity cost. They are consumed by this issue, and one asks, how focused are they on issues that are really concerning South Africans? High crime, high unemployment. How much time do they have in a day, Sakina, left to attend to issues of the day? Because you listen to the ANC, you can just close your eyes and listen to a senior member of the ANC, and you'll tell which faction do they come from. So you are getting a faction either way, whether you are getting a polite faction or a rude faction, but you are getting a faction, and it all shows that the ANC is experiencing institutional paralysis. It cannot help itself. But the wound is infesting to a point where it is now infecting state institutions such as the prosecution and so forth. I mean, marching to the court is intimidation of the prosecutors in a context such as this.
So, earlier this week, the ANC top six met, Ralph, and then there was a media briefing the following day. The Deputy Secretary-General, Jesse Duarte, saying that Magashule had in fact told the top six that he is charged for failing to play his oversight role, which is, of course, very different from what has been put out in terms of the charges that he's actually facing. So, are they playing this down? Is he playing this down? And what can we read into that, if anything?
Sagina, it is not in Mr. Magashule's interest to relinquish his position as the Secretary-General of the party. I mean, clearly, he has already crafted a defense that says that he's being targeted politically. And from what I hear, dereliction of responsibility, failure to exercise oversight, where it is your primary function actually to exercise oversight, seems to be seen as a misdemeanor here. And I think this is just the opening case here. I mean, when you listen to the Zondo Commission, Sakina, you get a view that the entire project was contrived to benefit other people. It's not just a simple lapse of oversight. So I see this as downplaying how serious this is, where they want it to be like misdemeanor. But I think within the culture of the ANC, Sakina, I can speak openly that you have suspects in parliament. So why should Magashule tread a different path here? There are a couple of people who have appeared before court and they have not relinquished their position in parliament, where they are primary function is to exercise oversight. So there is nothing exceptional here, and Mr. Magashule is simply reading them the script that has been perfected. It goes far back to 2007 with President Jacob Zuma.
And speaking of, the assertion that this is in fact state entities once again being used, state resources, state power being used to the benefit of the faction that is in control right now. Let's talk to that, because is there any credence from what you are seeing playing out here, Ralph, to that particular assertion?
I mean, Sakina, there's been a lot of impropriety to a point where I can say that the ANC factions democratize corruption among themselves. And what I mean by that is that look at the PPE scandals. It also involves some of President Ramaphosa's allies, the perceived good faction within the ANC. And this, Sakina, speaks to the core of the issue, that the level of compromise within the ANC is just making it difficult for the party to take a coherent position on anti-corruption. When you listen to one faction speaking, they're actually not denying that they might have benefited. But more often, ANC members say, but why us? Because others have also benefited. Why is there no a similar level of sanction towards others as well? So people are going to be asking about what about those who are allegedly involved in the PPE scandals, which are still fresh. The evidence is still fresh as well. So the pressure on the prosecutor in South Africa is to be seen acting without fear or favor. And acting in the influence of a good faction is still not acceptable. You should act in the interest of South Africans and effect anti-corruption across all factions. And from there, you are therefore killing this notion that you are being used for political machination.
A lot to go through. We've been at this on the story anyway the whole morning. Let's give you some live visuals now coming in from Bloemfontein. I'll try and speak through them. This is the MKMVA, obviously in support of Ace Magashule. They're marching through Bloemfontein. Just some background from what has happened this morning so far is that ANC Secretary-General Ace Magashule handed himself over to the Hawks at the offices in Mangaung. Now, he was supported, according to reports, by ANC senior member Bongani Bongo and former Northwest Premier Supra Mahumapelo. Magashule's convoy drove into the building of the Hawks at around 8:10 this morning. That's around 8:10, where he was processed before he will be transported, of course, to the Bloemfontein Magistrate Court, where he's expected to appear on those corruption charges. Now remember, Tuesday was a big day in this story. Now Magashule was served with a warrant of arrest in relation to the alleged corruption on 255 million rands asbestos tender awarded to businessman Edwin Sodi in 2014. We've seen Edwin Sodi at the Commission of Inquiry, implications. Basically, that's where it stemmed from. Ace Magashule's warrant of arrest. Now, Magashule was a large contingent of his supporters, as you can see there in the streets, held a night vigil at a nearby park in Bloemfontein, awaiting this day, and were expected to march to the court. These are just some of the streets in Bloemfontein. We heard overnight that they had been cordoned off, awaiting this appearance by Ace Magashule. Now, more senior ANC leaders were expected to show support for Magashule. Amongst them, again, these are just reports. Amongst them are expected to be Tony Yengeni and a small group of outer members. Well, they held a protest outside the Hawks offices, of course, in opposition to Ace Magashule. They believe that, well, Magashule's charges are politically motivated to his supporters. So a lot to read into this, and as far as Ace Magashule is concerned. Meanwhile, many ANC members in the Free State said they were disgusted by the decision to mobilize the structures of the movement to support Comrade Ace Magashule during his court appearance Friday, saying this flew in the face of decision from the party's national office bearers. Remember now, there was talk from the top six when they met during the week, when they said whoever goes to support Ace Magashule does that not as the ANC, but on their personal views, basically. If they want to go, do that, but not in the name of the ANC. So we are told now by my director that SABC News reporter Palisa is standing by. Palisa, I hope you can hear me. We're seeing some visuals there live through the streets of Bloemfontein. Take us through it. What is going on? Bloemfontein, we were told that it was on a standstill. Well, it would come to a standstill this morning. It looks like it from these pictures. Palisa, can you hear me? Tabi's not speaking. Let's try that again. Palisa, you are at the Bloemfontein Magistrate's Court.
Now to you.
Yes, Palisa.
Yes, we are outside the Bloemfontein Magistrate Court, where we're going to be talking to some of the ANC leaders that have actually come through to attend the court proceedings today. Amongst them, Tani and Geni, you've been quite unhappy this morning. The issue around numbers of people that are allowed inside court. Let's just start there.
Yes, we have a permit to be here. A permit was applied for and was given. Now we're told that initially 20 people were to be allowed inside the court. And then later 15 people were going to be allowed. Now we're told only 15 people only 5 people are going to be allowed. That is unacceptable. Secondly, we've got a barbed wire that separates our people from the stage. We have asked the police to remove that barbed wire. As I said earlier, we've got permission to be here. There's no reason for them to panic and attempt to exclude the people from the leadership. So that is the matter that we are raising very, very sharply. And we are insisting that the media must be allowed inside court. Because we have heard that they're trying to exclude the media from coming inside court.
And then the other issue, there was an instruction that today nobody should come and support the SG. He himself, in fact, said, he's not encouraging people to come here, but you are here anyways.
There's no such decision of the ANC that nobody must come and support the SG. There is no such decision. I'm a member of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, and no such decision was taken by the ANC. These people who are here, most of them, if not all of them, are members of the ANC. I'm a member of the ANC. I'm a member of the National Executive Committee. I'm here in my right as a member of the African National Congress, not just as an individual. And nobody is going to deny me the right to be here today and wearing ANC colors. I fought for these colors.
Oh, yes.
I took up arms for these colors. I went to prison for these colors. So no one is going to stop me from supporting the SG of the ANC in my ANC colors.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ngeni. We're also talking now to Carl Niehaus.
No, talk to the ANC members.
To the ANC, okay. Mr. Malisiki Gaba, just let's hear from you. Do you believe that state organs are being used to, against ANC leaders at this point?
It's important that state organs should maintain neutrality in political affairs in the country, and especially within factions in the ANC. Whether they are being used or not, the point that we are here to emphasize, one is that the SG of the ANC is innocent until proven guilty, and secondly, our support for him is aimed at emphasizing the unity of the ANC, so that whatever happens now and hereafter, the unity of the ANC must remain sacrosanct. And thirdly, we are here to underscore human and comradely solidarity, because we fought together for freedom and we remain together in the trenches for the total emancipation of our country. Whatever happens during this period, what we cannot afford is to take our eyes away from the agents to speed up the radical economic transformation of our country, to ensure that the vast bulk of productive assets in South Africa are transferred to the hands of the majority. So in the course of all of this, we must not be derailed, and we will not allow ourselves to be derailed.
Thank you very much. Now, can we also speak to some of the ANC leaders from the Free State? Sam Mashinini, do you believe, what are your thoughts about this case coming at this time in terms of timing? Next year, we've got elections coming up.
That's the problem that I'm having. The case coming at this time, it's targeting the SG of the ANC. And you can't expect members of the ANC and all of us to sit back and just fold their arms. We have to support the SG. Remember, the SG is not an SG of individual. It's an SG of the masses of the people of this country. And that's why you see them in numbers here. That's why I'm here. I'm supporting the SG because I elected him. I put my mark in Nasrec. And there's no way that I cannot support the SG.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm not sure what exactly is going on. Thabo, let's just pan to that side. We can hear some ANC members. It sounds like we've been told that the police are involved somehow. We know that numbers are limited, numbers of people that are allowed to go inside court. So we just wanted to monitor to see if there is, possibilities of tensions, but it doesn't look like it. I think it was just ANC members that were moving over, perhaps being moved by the police at this point in time. We'll be monitoring proceedings for the rest of the day, for the rest of this morning, but with that, it's back to you in studio.
Palisa, I hope you can still hear me, Palisa. I know there's a lot of noise there. The question I want to ask you, Palisa, in terms of, I do not want to call it factions. There are obviously pro-Ace Magashule supporters, as we've just seen, and there's obviously, we've seen over the past couple of weeks, some even marched to Luthuli House themselves. Do we have, let's call it factions for a lack of a better word right now? Do we have those different supporters, or as it stands right now, it is only pro-Ace Magashule supporters there in Bloemfontein? Palisa?
What I can tell you is that at this point, it's only pro-Ace supporters that are here. We already got an indication yesterday that those that were actually unhappy about developments in the Free State, those that are actually saying they want an end to corruption, that section actually mentioned to us yesterday that they will not be attending the court proceedings. That is the same group that actually marched on Tuesday during their court case. It is the same group that marched to the Luthuli House a week ago.
The one question that I wanted to know, and possibly would have liked you to have asked some of the leaders of the ANC that were there, Malusi Gigaba, Tony Yenged and Carl Niehaus, or you didn't speak to him, but Sam Mashinini, the pronouncement that anyone who is implicated or for wrongdoing within the ANC that should step aside until those investigations to their alleged wrongdoing is done. I thought maybe you would have asked the question, but be that as it may, one of the people on the ground saying, Palisa, with regards to this investigation, do they really care that the charges against Ace Magashule of 255 million rand are being put against him? Or as far as they're concerned, as we heard, this is their SG, they'll support him no matter what?
I couldn't actually get that question clearly, but what I can tell you is that on the ground there's mixed views. There are people that would literally say that, no. Obviously, now it's very clear that there are definite divisions within the party. Right now, you'll be able to see on camera ANC members burning a T-shirt with the face of the president of the ANC, Ramaphosa. Obviously, very strong supporters of the SG at the moment that are feeling that the SG is actually being terrorized, if I can put it that way, or being victimized. Very clear sentiments around here that you'll be able to see now on camera as members burn the T-shirt of the president of the ANC, Ramaphosa.
What are those supporters saying, Palisa? Are they saying they are against their president of the ANC being Cyril Ramaphosa? Or is this, basically this is the splits that we're talking about as far as the factions are concerned?
The feeling really here is that this case is actually a political ploy more than anything else. really the feeling on the ground that Ace Magashule is being persecuted. At this point in time, that is the feeling that we're getting from the people that are attending here. Obviously, that's not the only perspective here in the Free State. There is a different perspective of members of the ANC as well as community members that feel that corruption needs to be dealt with, and this is the best way to deal with it, by taking people, arresting people and taking them through the justice system.
If possible, if it is safe to do you mind having a conversation with some of those supporters there around you, if obviously it's safe to do so?
We will try to allocate some of the other leaders of the ANC as well.
And as you can see, those are live pictures coming from our reporter Palisa Mwete in Bloemfontein. As you can see, the pictures of being banned. In fact, Palisa, let's go back to her. Yes?
Burning the t-shirt of the president. Hello, sir. Can I quickly talk to you? Why are you doing this? Why are you burning the t-shirt of the face of the president?
No comment.
No comment. Okay. Let's try to speak to another one of these members. Hello, sir. Hello. Tell me, why are you burning the t-shirt with the face of the president?
Take it over.
Why are you doing this? Why are you? One of the ANC leaders
ANC literally puts yes.
Today we see you burning.
Yes, we are demanding Cyril Ramaphosa and his colleagues must move out of South Africa, not only out of the ANC. They are here to destroy this country. Now today we are taking a radical decision that Ramaphosa must step down, or the ANC must immediately call as soon as possible an NGC which will remove Ramaphosa, because all this is Ramaphosa's shenanigans. It is Ramaphosa creating this. Now this is a symbol of showing that in the ANC, Ramaphosa is no longer welcome. Thank you very much. Tepo Davis from Lizoli Puto.
Very strong sentiments there from members of the ANC. Totally, unhappy about the president of the ANC. What I can also just add is that at around 10 o'clock this morning, the SG is expected to hand himself over to the Hawks at the Hawks offices here in Bloemfontein. That is expected at around 10 o'clock. From there, he will then come to court, head to court, where the matter will be heard here in the Bloemfontein Magistrate Court. All of this is happening outside the Bloemfontein Magistrate Court building at this point in time. There's other groups that we know of protesters in support of the SG. But at this point, it's very much clear that these supporters in particular are unhappy with the president, calling for him to be removed. With that, it's back to you in studio.
Thank you very much there, Palisa Mwete, our reporter on the ground outside the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court. You can see those supporters out there burning T-shirts of the President Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the ANC. That Cyril Ramaphosa will try and keep as much of those live pictures for you as possible, our viewer. But for now, let's bring in Professor Barry Hanyane, political analyst, if you may. Prof, welcome to the agenda. We're seeing these pictures. We're seeing what has happened. Ace Magashule handed himself over, according to reports, around 8 o'clock this morning to the Hawks, being processed, and then will be zipped through to the Magistrates Court, where he'll be in the dock and obviously hear those charges. This is what a lot of people, yourself, analysts have been speaking about, the division within the ANC. It is there to bear. You see it right now in front of our eyes. It's no longer just hypothesis. We are seeing it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. These incidences today, in my view, certify the belief and the notion, if not the analysis, the ANC as a party has now been franchised. Rightly so, you have people who have been somewhat of a moral voice in the center, your so-called veterans. But we see those in the left and the right as well, who would want to influence the ANC politics in a manner that seeks to advance personal interests and not necessarily the common interests that reflect the ANC as a unified organization. And again, it highlights the rhetoric that the unity within the ANC may very well be something that is a rhetoric, which will put the current leadership in some kind of pressure in terms of ensuring that, amongst others, the resolutions of Nasrec are achieved, and of course, the rebuilding process of the organization sees the light of the day.
You've seen in those pictures that we got from Palisa, senior leaders, Malusi Kigaba, Tony Yengeni, and Sam Mashinini out there vocally saying they're there to support the SG. It speaks volumes about the ANC in the past two, well, the president, the previous one, and now this one. Calls have been, we just heard from a follower there, ANC member, saying the president, the sitting ANC president, must be recalled. It does not look good for the ruling party.
I wouldn't arrive at that conclusion. I would rather say the cracks on the wall are beginning to be more visible than ever before. But again, we've got to be cautious here. The question that perhaps we should ask ourselves is, does the ANC center really hold? I believe there are men and women out there who still hold on to the notion that there are good men and women in the ANC who may very well be capable of trying to steer the organization into the right direction. Whether this will provide a bedrock for strong leadership or not, it's another debate for another day. But as things stand, rightly so, I think the gloves are off. We should appreciate that. Those who are seen to be supporting the so-called radical economic transformation, who sadly, by the way, have lost out in terms of gaining the influence within the ANC, have now embarked on some kind of a pushback in reclaiming and, of course, influencing politics within the ANC. It was the thinker within the ANC, Mr. Joel Nechitenze, who warned us of this, to say, lest we forget that within the ANC, there will be those who will push back against processes such as remodernization of the party and, of course, bringing the party into the right side of politics. So we shouldn't be surprised around these clashes within the organization. Unfortunately, it is the administration within the state that stands to suffer, and in the process, the plight of the poor, especially your asbestos beneficiaries and victims in the Free State.
I mentioned it at the top of the show when I said, for the first time since the former President Thabo Mbeki's administration, a top 6 member of the ANC is being charged with corruption and failure to exercise oversight. ANC, we hear them saying they'll self-correct. They tried to do it back then with former President Jacob Zuma. Is this that path that they're still trying to do on the back of what you've just said?
This path must be taken. It's a painful path, but within the ANC, one would argue that it cannot be business as usual, especially since the ANC wants to portray itself as so-called a leader of society. However, I must appreciate the fact that once we focus on political issues, it is also important to look at how the same political issues affect issues of governance. Seemingly, the line between the two seems to be somewhat blurred, and that may be dangerous if we proceed along these lines. What needs to happen here, I would perhaps caution here to say, the ANC supporters should understand their role and their place in the broader scheme of things, allow due process to take place, and of course, ensure that the rule of law is also promoted. But otherwise, what we've been seeing this morning is the manipulation of the process, be it advancing a propagandist narrative that says state institutions are now being used to advance some kind of a political position by those who have proximity to such institutions. I think we've experienced that in the past. Right now, it's time to reclaim the state and make sure that all the political actors understand that agenda.
Yeah, the case, well, as we speak to, we got some live pictures there. We don't have any audio. We'll try and correct that so we can dip into it. Prof, the question then comes in. We heard Sam Mashinini speak of this case is coming at the time where it's targeting their SG. The SG is not of the ANC, is SG of individuals. In fact, Ace is not an SG of individuals. He's elected at Nasrec, and that's why all these people, as you see in the pictures, are out there supporting him.
The SG is the SG of the governing party. I think we might be stretching it too far to actually reclassify and relabel his position and influence in the broader scheme of things. Not everybody voted for the ANC in the last general elections, and surely space was given for processes within the ANC to unfold in Nasrec. At the end of the day, the SG is the image, is the face of the governing party, and that's where things stand. This is the point I was trying to make earlier on. What we have in this country is the ability of certain people to use the public platform to advance certain narrative, which in my understanding may very well be categorized and classified as propaganda in the making.
I'm going to pause there for a second. As I said, we've got live pictures from the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court. We spoke to our reporter, Pali Samuete, a short while ago, and we heard Tony Yenge, and he's saying that people are being barred from going there. Let's listen. It looks like there's an issue with the barbed wire and some of those fans who are not getting access to court. Let's listen. We're going to try and get our reporters back on the line, Prof, to try and give us some indication of what is happening there. But we did hear that there was commotion with the number of people allowed to be there outside the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court. We heard Tony again saying they'd applied to be there, they'd asked for permission to be there, and they do not understand why they're not being let through to come and support the SG. Let's bring you back there, Prof. We've just seen the by-elections locally a couple of days ago in the country. The Prof being told that we've just lost connections there, but it would be interesting to ask the Prof what he would have thought on the back of the fact that, we're speaking about the fraction or the friction between the ANC. It would be interesting to get to see, look, ANC won a number of the by-elections, the wars yesterday, so whilst maybe individually there might be split in support with regards to the individuals in the ANC, but as a party, it seems that their supporters still come out for their supporters, for their party anyway, and do support them. Prof, I understand you're back on the line. Is that correct, sir?
It is indeed.
Okay, thank you, Prof. The question I wanted to ask you, Prof, before I lost you there for a while, we had by-elections a couple of days ago. The numbers came back with the ANC, well, I would say clean the tables. So as much as we're seeing separation or friction within individuals within the party, it seems that locally anyway, in the wars that were contested, the ANC, their supporters still believe in the party, but I guess maybe the local elections will be a clear indication of that.
Yeah, I think the people on the ground, despite issues of corruption, maladministration, malfeasance, and we've seen this in a number of municipalities. I mean, I'm based in a province where 22 municipalities in total did not get a clean audit. So the question that should be asked is, do people really understand the dynamics, the challenges, the intricacies of what governance is all about? I am of the view that there could be a gap that exists between the perceptions of the people as well as empowering them so that they understand what governance is all about. But in relation to your question directly, when people give the ANC the confidence and the vote that they did in the past by-elections, I think the message has been sent that nobody has a right to claim the ANC or persons to claim the ANC for themselves. The ANC still remains and still enjoys that privilege of being an asset politically that belongs to the people. Yeah. So whether there is some wrongdoing that is observed by the people, that seems to take the back seat of the bus, yes. But rather people still owe allegiance to the organization. Well, so that's one part. And I would not take these by-elections as necessarily a precursor, for instance, on what is likely to happen next year in the local government elections.
Prof, I'm going to pause you there for a minute. Apologies for Upululim, as so to speak. I'd like us to take a quick look at this. Now, divisions, of course, we saw there within the ANC are evident in this morning as two groups from the party demonstrate outside. We spoke to our reporter, Palisa, who said she had not seen mostly, protesters who are anti-Magashule. Opposition parties and some concerned ANC members have welcomed Magashule's arrest, but Magashule's staunch supporters say this court case is politically motivated. The anti-Magashule supporters are protesting outside court. Let's take a look at Thabiso Kgatebe, who filed this report for us right there. Thabiso, are you there with me? Thabiso Kgatebe, can you hear me, sir? Okay, Thabiso doesn't seem to hear me. We can see him in shots there, but we're going to try and see. Palisa Mweti, are you there with me?
At this point.
As we try and establish communication with our reporters, Palisa Mweti as well as Thabiso Kgatebe are standing by. You can see them in shots. We'll try and clean up the lines. I understand that it is a bit noisy there, so they might not be able to hear me. Prof, whilst we do that and get our reporters ready, obviously it's interesting to know what's happening on the ground. That's why we have those reporters there. You're still mentioning the mandate that although the ANC thinks or could be confident in saying they received at the by-elections, we saw Fikile Mbalula coming out and saying resounding victory. A lot of people would say maybe it's not that resounding, it's the local elections that will count mostly, and then a lot of people are despondent with the ruling party, in particular with COVID-19. Look, nobody had knew how the pandemic would affect everyone, but a lot of people saying the ANC are going to go, or the anti-ANC supporters anyway, saying they're going to try and vote them out at the national elections.
No, true that. And I think the anticipated 2021 local government elections will provide a platform for pretty much new political dimensions and dynamics. By-elections are there just to, in my view, deal with damage control. And what do I mean by this? Councillors might have passed away, councillors might have crossed the floor, and all other variables that come into play that would necessitate by-elections. So we shouldn't read too much into that. And I think Luthuli House might be made aware that it would be premature to celebrate the success that they have achieved as a way to reflect on the coming local government elections. I think it will be a total new ball game there. You have the possibility of new political parties coming into the play. However, we need to appreciate that you had 19 independent candidates, and unfortunately, none of those got a seat. But it also tells us that the trajectory of local government elections is likely to change for the first time come next year, and this might pose a few challenges for the ANC.
Prof, I'm going to pause you once again, and I beg your indulgence to do stay with us as we try and make connection once again to our reporters. Thabiso Kgatebe is standing by. Thabiso, I hope you've cleaned up the audio, and I hope you can hear me now. Tell us, Thabiso, what is the latest down there in Bloemfontein? We understand that there are factions, both sides, pro-Ace Magashule and anti-Ace Magashule supporters there.
Yes, good morning, Arabile. We're coming to you live we are back here at the Magistrate Court in Bloemfontein. We remember in the morning when we were here, there were no people around here. But as you can see, I'm going to ask my camera person, Dr. Chomani, just to pan around, just to show you the people who are here. It's hundreds of ANC members who have gathered here. They are saying that they are going to be supporting their leader, which is SG of the ANC, Ace Magashule. And we're expecting the court to start around about 10 o'clock or so. And obviously where we are standing, we can't see but our colleagues, I hope they will do justice to this story and sort of cover the arrival of the SG of the ANC, which is ANC SG Ace Magashule. But I've got a couple of people here that I'm going to talk to right now, just to hear, did they understand why are they here?
le kae ke re a khona go utlwisisa ntate go bana re le mona re tlo support ntate AC tla sa mabaka e leng gore SG ba ntse ba accuse ka di allegations jwale re tle mona o tlo support gore allegations ntse ba di entseng ha di na bonnete obane rona ba bang re mo re leng teng ka je ko maphelong ka lebaka la ntate AC di RDP di tem di tsela tsohle di lokile ke tswa strekeng sa sosolo
the ANC has done a lot for Luna.
A lot.
Yes, it's done a lot. Yes, ANC boholo e re tseitse bongata ANC bona kwana Bloemfontein re na le museum re na le di park re na le ntho tse ngata ka lebaka la ANC ona le mesebetsi e tswang for ANC le mo ba ntse re ngodisa distance ka ANC.
But to currently Arohane, but to African National Congress, it seems as if you are divided. There are people who are marching, they are not here, and then you are here today.
Re teng mona re tlo support ntate AC for justice e etswe ho yena.
No, we are not divided as ANC people. We are here to support one of our own comrades, Ace Magashule. Ban AC Ace bana dikolo batho bana ba sa bone gore Ace ira lo tse ding. Today batho ba rona ke bone ba batla go lwantsha Ace. We are quite aware ka batho ba batla go lwantsha Ace. Ha Ace ane isa bana go bochuba, Ace bana rona le bana ba bentsi ba ile sekolo fanda ba le matisha because of comrade Ace Magashule. Fanda ga ba di bone tse di tshwana le tseo. Hands off to comrade Ace, hands off. Hands off. Ntate Magashule ntse ngata ka ga motswa South Africa ka mona no tshena re hands off Ntate Magashule, hands off Ntate Magashule, hands off Ntate Magashule, hands off Ntate Magashule, down Ramaphosa, down. Yeah.
As you hear Arabile outside, it's hotting up. It's very, very tense here outside the Magistrate Court. These people are saying that they are understanding why they are here to support Ace Magashule. They are saying that ANC has done a lot for the communities of the Free State, especially one of them was talking about the museum in Brandfort, that saying that the ANC has built them a museum in Brandfort. One of them was saying that in the Free State they've got houses, there are roads because of the ANC. Hence they are here to support their leaders. Arabile.
Thabiso Khatebe, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us. We'll try and come back to you again. I'm going to ask the show producer or the director to see if maybe our colleague Palisa is up. I did see her pictures, or she's not up yet. But just a quick update as well. We've lost the professor as well. We'll try and see if we can get the prof back. But of course, we'd like to dissect what is going on in Bloemfontein. Just a quick background on what we've covered so far is that ANC Secretary-General Ace Magashule, well, he has handed himself over. That was, of course, this morning at around 8:10 in the morning, that was at the Hawks offices in Bloemfontein. He was then processed, and we heard from our journalists there saying that at around 10 a.m. he's expected to make his way through to the Bloemfontein Magistrate's Court. The legal woes for Ace Magashule relate to the 255 million rand asbestos audit contract in the Free State. Now, the state alleges that the tender was irregularly awarded in 2014. Magashule was the Free State Premier at the time the tender was awarded. Now, Public Protector Busiwe Mkhwebane found government did not get value for money in the multi-million rand contract. That's where we started off the story. Now, earlier our reporter Thabiso Khatebe spoke to the Mangaung Metropolitan Municipality about services in the metro that are affected by today's events. We